as the Logos, theorems more luminous and complete than those of Pythagoras, a theology which may be epitomized by counting on the fingers, an infinity which can be held in the infant's hand, 10 numerals and 22 letters, a triangle, a square, and a circle. Such are the elements of the Kabbalah. Such are the primary principles of the written word, shadow of that spoken Logos which created the world. Each student has the task to ascertain for himself, where the Kabbalah is concerned, what must be considered true and reliable, and to set up on his own. For this reason, the Tree of Life has been adopted as the framework of practical magic, since it is in the first place language and the developments therefrom. The Kabbalah does not attempt to provide a complete magical language or an entire philosophy. Only by spiritual experience may the latter be acquired, but from the alphabet enabled, with the aid of magical research and with the aid of the inner spiritual experience, to construct a satisfactory edifice of a high philosophy which will take him through life. Previously, the Tree of Life was considered as a numerical symbol of the orderly progression of the universe from ideality.
The audiobook is not getting paused, Southern Man. You have entered into a different room, brother.
Yet so absurd are the ways of men, and so far have they drifted from essential, that few of us consciously realize our essential God. And inasmuch as in practical magic, the wand is the ceremonial instrument of creation, so is the wand the true symbol of the spiritual will, one, upright, towering to the heavens, almighty, above. To it also is referred the spiritualized imagination.
This is Israel Regardia.
Which, with the will,
Dave, welcome.
Powers par excellence, utilized in the outside world, so that by means of the experience thus obtained, the self may come to a self-conscious realization is centered. Although the psychological anomaly is true, that this perceptual mechanism evolved as the ego, as that which has real power, insight, will, and the ability to solve the problems of life, as an offering to the Most High. He that loses his life shall find it. Lest there be some misconstruction placed upon the words destruction and abnegation and sacrifice ability in nature, but the false values of the ego, its complacency, the illusion that it possesses, that it alone is real and permanent, all else being its creations, these are offered for destruction. When the smartness and the false egoism in the mind is rooted out, it is an instrument of the soul, and that lunar, vegetative, and instinctual subtle planes of nature. In all truth, descent is in reality of the Holy Ghost. William James, lectures of the early part of this century, wrote that one conclusion, high potential forms of consciousness entirely different. We may go through life without even suspecting their existence. In all their mentality. Application which, to use James' term, apply the requisite stimulus to reveal other and deeper levels of consciousness which are ever present, but remain as a rule totally unsuspected. Once magical stimulus is applied, and these levels are tapped, there occurs what has been labeled illumination, the flooding of the mind with light. Before I was blind, but now I see. This so-called transcendental experience, to be reached by ritual and other technical procedures, is the heart of this archaic, Kabbalistic, and magical system, and can hardly be guessed at, save by some shrewd and it is with the mind with which I wish in particular to occupy myself at some little length. Although it comprises the 5 sephiros, numbered 4 to 8 inclusive, is which concerns the magician, is the fact that it inherent in the mind is a principle of self-contradiction which prevents its use independent of any superior systems in the quest for truth and light. Using the reason alone, man can never come to any true realization of what he is in himself. That is, he can never understand by the mind alone that he is an eternal spiritual entity, a brilliant star, shining by the light of its own essence, within the bespangled body of Yuri, the queen of infinite space, of the higher spiritual powers, by means of the rite of magic that we have already defined, that the consummation of the long ages is effected. What we call so casually the imagination in the ordinary man is, according to the exponents of magic, the major faculty of the soul.
The next step, democracy dodders, ferocious fascism, cackling communism, equally frauds, cavort crazily all over the globe. They are hemming us in. They are abortive births of the child, the new eon of Horus. Liberty stirs once more in the womb of time. Evolution makes its changes by anti-socialistic ways. The abnormal man, who foresees the trend of the times and adapts circumstance intelligently, is laughed at, persecuted, destroyed by the herd. But he and his heirs, when the crisis comes, are survivors. Above us today hangs a danger never yet paralleled in history. We suppress the individual in more and more ways. We think in terms of the herd. The measure of the most democratic and autocratic governments is communistic in essence. It is always restriction. Us to cross the roads at will. Fascism is like communism in mass. establishment of the law of Thelema is the only way to preserve individual liberty and to assure the future of the race. In the words of the famous paradox of the Comte de Felix, the absolute rule of the state shall be a function of the absolute liberty. Cooperate with the master Therion in this great work.
Of these other levels of whereby it perceives directly and immediately ideas and thoughts of every kind. There, Loyola counsels his disciples to relive in the sphere of the imagination all see, touch, smell, and taste those invisible things and rehearse those incidents long since accomplished and vanished, put it to its uttermost. If you are meditating on an article of faith, he would have you construct the locality clearly and with exactitude before the vision